Good morning, and thank you for tuning in. My name is Carissa DeShays, and this is my weekly podcast, Faith Over Fear. I am coming live from my turn with Carl. Carl, thank you so much for being on my podcast. I really, really appreciate it. It's an honor to be able to sit here and have this experience with you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Glad to
Absolutely.
have you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And for anybody that doesn't know my turn, they are located in Manchester. They're doing a lot of great things in the community. Carl's going to touch on that as well, and also being able to share his story and kind of what brought him here. Anybody that knows Faith Over Fear, it's just a platform to be able to share your experience, strength, and hope, and really give others that voice to share that love within the community. So I'll give you the platform. Let's talk a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What's your story?
All right, so I'm from Manchester, New Hampshire originally. I'm 43, from the west side of Manchester. Growing up right over here on Blaine Street pretty much for years, 10, 15 years, same place. Lived with my mother and my grandparents. My father went to federal prison when I was 5, so he was in and out of my life. My parents both had me when they were 16, so they're very young. They're just like kids having kids. In school, growing up, I was always a smart kid, did well in school, did well in sports, star athlete, and I want to say till about, junior high, started getting in trouble a little, following my older cousins around, smoking a little bit of weed here and there, drinking. That eventually obviously progressed to every day. Started missing school, getting in trouble for truancy, and other small crimes teenagers commit. I want to say about, it's 15, yeah, right before I turned 16. My father died from a heroin overdose
Sorry.
unexpectedly. So he had always been in and out of my life, like I said. But at that time, he was like in my life and doing good. So it was, a bigger letdown. Um,
And to like have that connection again and then just losing that must have been really difficult.
right. Yeah. At that time where I could either go straight left or right and I just went left. But, yeah, so I became, you know, lost, I would say. I had no male guidance at that point. My grandfather was around still, but he was old. So I started following like older drug dealers, probably in like the early 20s, selling weed for them and not going to school. Say like 6 months after that, one of my favorite cousins just died from leukemia. He had been in remission, but he got an infection and they had to do an emergency surgery and he died. So my first 2 times dealing with death were back to back, 2 of my favorite people, you know what I mean? So the way I dealt with it was just by smoking my brains out and losing myself and like hustling. It was
And at that point, you
always
were trying to like keep yourself distracted to basically like numb the pain.
right. So to not, you can't, but I mean, that's what I was trying to do. And I was always at odds with my stepfather. My mother had remarried and Um, me and him both got arrested twice right around that time for fighting, and then I had to leave the house, and
How old were you?
about 16.
Okay.
So I ended up staying with my girlfriend and her parents. Her parents would even smoke weed with us, so it's not like I went to a better place. But there wasn't violence there. Um, so around that time, I'm losing it, you know what I mean? I'm depressed, smoking more and more. Me and my girl are arguing and we eventually break up. I'm like, at this point, I'm like sleeping on people's couches, my friends, and then I ended up actually getting an apartment with this older dude I hustled for. And maybe that's I think it was that summer. I actually met the girl that I eventually had a couple of kids with. I have 2 kids, Dante and Jaden.
Hmm.
Um, they're both they're both great kids. They actually taught me what love is, because eventually you'll hear in my story I was incarcerated for a while, but despite the fact that I left them alone for most of their childhoods without a father, they never held it against me, and they treat me like I'm a hero.
Isn't it beautiful like what we can learn from kids?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it is. So during these times, I'm having in between having kids, they're like my kids are like 2 years apart. I'm hustling more now. One of the people I was giving weed to was like, "Hey, you get coke." I'm gonna start selling harder drugs, more amounts. And then some of my friends too are dying from drug overdoses, suicides. Even one of my cousins, Was just found out he had to go back to prison. He killed himself. He didn't want to go back to prison. So just continued to lose myself in hustling. Like say people, normal people probably do it. They call him a workaholic.
Right.
It was like a hustleaholic, which is not good. So that just progressed pretty much until I'm gonna say I was about 21 one day. I was driving with my friend. He was like, "Bro, you're always so stressed out. Take one of these perks." I'm like, I don't want to take one of those, bro. He's like, no, it ain't like that. You can't even get it. It's prescription. I'll just take the edge off your anxiety. This was like, 23 years ago. It's true. You couldn't get them like, probably nowadays.
Right.
So I take it thinking, yeah, I ain't going to be able to get it. I won't get addicted. I'm off and running. So back then there was like, you had to like find old people that had scripts to get them.
Yeah, because it wasn't that accessible.
Right. So we're like
Right.
on a mission every day to get them. Then when we wouldn't have them, we'd be aggravated to the point where you get addicted. You have withdrawals physically. I remember I had withdrawals one time so bad, like I'm trying to quit. I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't be awake. It's like everything was like suffering.
Right.
So this continued from I was like 21 till I was about 27. But literally same dude who gave me the pill. He was my close friend. Say I was 20 on my 24th birthday. We were riding around smoking. My kid's mom called me and she was like, "Hey, if you're coming down here to Florida, you got to register the car. The registration's up." So I'm like, "All right, yo, drop me off DMV." They dropped me off. Like, we're going to do something. We'll be right back. I'm like, "Hurry up, hurry up." Anyways, I come out. They ain't there. I call my friend who was driving. He's like, "I can't talk right now. Let me just go shop." What? Well, another long story short, 10 minutes later, his mom calls me screaming, "Carl, where's my son?" This was like my best friend at the time. I have no idea where they went. So I'm like, I don't know. I was just with him. I don't know where he is. She's like, he's dead. What? It was literally just with them like 15 minutes ago. So he had gone, unbeknownst to me, they had gone to go buy some pills, like $400 worth of pills. Dude got in the back seat, tried to rob him. He tried to grab the gun from the dude. Dude shot him once.
Mm-mm.
He died. So there we go again. You know what I mean? The same way I dealt with it the same way before. Now I'm like, I ain't quitting pills. I'm taking more. I'm hustling more. And probably like 3 years after that, one night I'm out drinking. Some dude grabbed my girl. Bar fight ensues. Ended up getting into this huge brawl. The police came. I got arrested for assault on a couple of police officers. Had to go to jail for 4 months. About a couple months into my 4 months, I call home. My baby mama's like, "Carl, you ain't getting out. The FBI just picked me up from work."
No way.
So yeah, I got ended up getting indicted, a secret indictment from the FBI, and did 12 years in federal prison.
Wow.
I wanted to do 4 months and ended up doing 12 years, 4 months. So that was pretty crazy.
So what was your process like? Because for me it just sounds like childhood trauma, right? And not having that example and that stability. And then it's really trying because we live in a world when you don't have that growing up, we live in a world that can be so easily influenced. And like when you're at the ages of 15 and 16, and that's when my addiction started for me as well, because it was the sense of like, I felt like I belonged. And then you're constantly chasing that. And then throughout that entire process, you're continuing to lose yourself and lose yourself. And it's a spiral. But what it's really happening is like you're trying to mask that inner emotion so you can't feel it, but it only works for so long until it doesn't. So once you got incarcerated, what did that journey really look like for you?
So at first, it's not real at first because it happens in like increments. They tell you you get indicted and you always have this hope or false hope, whatever you want to call it. Oh, maybe I can beat this case and all that. But once you realize you ain't and you're doing all that time, it's like honestly being incarcerated for that long at the beginning was like being alive at my own funeral. Everybody's fighting over your stuff. Like you're calling home and they're arguing over who's getting your TV and your couch and you're getting visits. Once they know doing that much time, they slow down. I remember my kids came to see me for the first time, and through glass. There's no contact. They looked scared and they looked like confused. And I've never seen my kids like that. I felt like not in control and weak. And as a man, I feel like you should protect your children and provide for them. And I could no longer do that. So in my head, I was like, I have to do something. to, at least when I get out, be able to lead them.
Right.
So my mother always told me when I first got locked up, God has a plan for me. At the time, it was hard to believe. I just always remember her saying that. And so I just started to work on myself, reading, working out, doing programs, and religious studies, anything I could do, I did to better myself, try to hang out with the people who did the same thing. My life started to change. I would say inwardly first because I was incarcerated,
Right.
but my thinking started to change. And I could
While
tell,
you were incarcerated?
yeah, even in there,
And what were some of the things that you did, like, in order to really create that change with yourself? Because I know that you're really, it's a state of isolation where it's really like you and your body and your mind and your spirit. So what are some things that you did in order to kind of create that change for you?
I just kind of like I took accountability for what I did. You know, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm in here. This dude told on me all this and that." And in my circumstance, I feel like the people that did, set me up and turn me in, they never would have had the chance to do that if I didn't put them in that position. So I said, okay, I'm not going to blame them. What do I got to do to make myself better? You know what I mean? So I did everything. I read a lot, self help books, Bible, did prison programming. Some of their programs, 98% of the stuff they say, I don't remember, but the 2% things that did stick and resonate with me, still to this day, I use. Like when we go into high schools, some of the negative thinking patterns I can identify in other youth now and tell them, like, hey, you think like this, you've got to change that. Everything's not going wrong. Like one thing people do, they speak or think definitively, everything's going wrong. No,
Right.
everything's not going wrong. This, and this are going wrong, but what's going right?
Right. So it's kind of like changing that thinking and looking, even if it's like a simple thing, like you woke up today, you're breathing, like you have another opportunity to really, and I love that you talk on that because when I had started my journey as well, it's always about small goals. So if you want to like better yourself in any way, because when you look at the grand scheme of things, it can be super overwhelming. But I always tell people like, don't look at how far you have to go, but look at how far you've come, and like the work that you're doing, like I said, is just so amazing because I know for myself when I had gone through active addiction and all those things, when I had somebody speak to me that had experience, it was so different. Not that I'm saying I'm downing anybody that wants to go to school and like get that a CSRW or any of those things and want to take that training to help people. I think that's beautiful, but it's a different type of connection when you can walk in those shoes and you've been in those shoes and you see somebody else, like you said, that's almost like a mirror to how you used to be and you can guide them in such a different way. And people recognize that and people can see that. So it's really beautiful. And it's good that you took that opportunity while you were incarcerated to start changing because it can be either very detrimental to people or it can be a time where you can self-reflecting, but it's not easy. I'm sure it was painful. I'm sure there were times that, being in your own head and having that situation could have been super overwhelming and all these different emotions, but it's good that you had those changes within yourself.
Yeah, I remember going through it all. I would think I knew when my thinking was really changing when I would still have negative thoughts, but I would not act on them. You know what I mean? I identify them as negative, even if I kept having them, but I wouldn't act on them. So I actually, because thank God my thinking changed, but I was in three different federal prisons. I was in New York, I was in Pennsylvania, I was in Berlin, and like when I first got in, my first cellmate was doing life for stabbing another inmate to death. My first cellmate in prison, he was an older dude, and I realized I was like, if I don't change how I am right now, I'm never leaving this place. Same thing with my cellie. He told me he got 6 years in 1983, sentenced to 6 years. Started all the stuff he was doing in the street in prison, kept it going, stabbed someone to death, got a life sentence. You know what I mean? So I always remember that. So I got 12 years, ended up getting a year and a half off for good behavior, ended up doing 11 years. So um,
So how was it like transitioning back into the community?
that was actually harder than I thought it was going to be. I thought because I did everything positive, it would be smooth. It was probably smoother than it is for a lot of people, but still, so many things, like even just like how people dress. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to the gym. I remember from the halfway house in this huge baggy sweatsuit. Some dude's walking by me. He's like, "You got to be in the halfway house, bro. Trust me."
Oh
I
no.
was like, I didn't have anything when I got out. So, but
But it's like a culture shock, and somebody that I do the reentry program with, talk about that when somebody gets out of incarceration, it's like literally taking somebody and putting them into like a brand new country
Yeah, yeah.
and just like dropping
So
them out.
it's the same as when you go in, you know, like you're gonna be there for a while. It takes a little while to get used to it. You gotta like go backwards. So there's a scene in that movie, Castaway. You ever seen it?
Mm-mm.
So Tom Hanks, he's trapped on an island for like 4.5 years. He has no one there with him. He ends up being friends with some volleyball that washed up on shore. So he like calls Wilson. He talks to it's his friend. He leaves. He finally escapes off the island, and when he's like going through the waves to get off, the ball goes overboard. This dude just fought tooth and nail every day of his life to get off the island. And as soon as his ball goes drifting, he jumps back in the water to get it. So I was like, bro, I can't do that. You know what I mean?
Mm-mm.
You got to leave the prison things in prison and just go. So,
But it's good you had that like realization because I feel like it can be really hard. It's really like a spiritual battle between ourselves and like our minds. And like, I even feel like it's like your mind versus your heart. And then changing behaviors is really difficult. And it takes time because if you really think about it, like even the hustling game, all that stuff, it becomes a lifestyle, it becomes survival. Like, really, it's survival because that's what you knew. You're constantly in fight or flight, right? Like you're not ever feeling safe. So learning to be safe, learning to maybe, change certain toxic behaviors, it's hard.
yeah,
You have to create a habit. Even when you catch yourself, even still, even the journey that I'm on, like I have to constantly, I'm an Aries, I'm a fire sign. So one thing I can feel like my body lighting up and like, but I've taught myself to be calm with tools that have taken time to have that acceptance and that balance in my life because it wasn't always like that for me. It definitely takes time. So, you're at the halfway house and then what kind of ends up happening like while you're getting back into the community.
so they actually let me go on house arrest for my last 6 months. So when I got on house arrest, now there's no one locked up with you. It's just you by yourself, quiet like this. It was so weird.
I was going to say it must have been like uncanny almost.
I'm like, I was uncomfortable. Like the sound, no noise, and then like making dinner and at home, it's not like there. And there you got a microwave where you go to the chow. There you got to think about what you're gonna make. You know what I mean? You got to make it. You got to factor that into your schedule. Everything you do in the halfway house or on a house arrest, you got to write out a week in advance, and there's not much you can do. But that was actually tough, like being trapped in a house pretty much by myself. You know what I mean? Because you can't leave.
And do you feel like there was like any support then where they had maybe programs that were helping you kind of get back into the community? Or do you think it was more or less like, okay, like you've been doing great, like good luck?
They let me, so they would let me go to the gym, and like you can have an outing once a week. So what I did is I made sure, obviously, I went to the gym, and I reunited with my kids. So I did as much as possible that's I could with them. So now I'm going to the gym. I'm having them meet me at the gym because they play basketball. So they're playing basketball. I'm at the gym. I'm meeting every day. You know what I mean? We got our like relationship back slowly. And then I was doing landscaping at the time. I worked as many hours as I could to not be trapped in the house. And actually got my younger son a job with me doing that. They allowed me, even though I was on house arrest, go pick him up in the morning, go to work.
That's nice.
Yeah,
That's
that
good.
was cool. And then so I'd like to say everything from there worked out perfect. But a year and a half after I got out, my youngest son was shot and killed in a robbery gone bad.
Sorry.
So same thing as like when my friend died. My older son called screaming like 5 in the morning. Dad, they just killed Jaden. Jaden's dead. So I immediately went into like this was probably the first time I actually went back into like prison mode, like cold, no emotion, focus on what he's saying. One thought slipped in though, right in the beginning when he said it. This is never gonna go away, which it hasn't. But as you'll see, things are working out. So he came to my house flipping out. I'm hugging him. I'm not crying, nothing. I'm like shut down. All right,
Yeah, it's a protectile mode. Your body was in basically like protection.
right. So
Yeah.
where he got shot was still a crime scene. We go down there. We can't get anywhere near it. I'm like, all right. So I want to say for the next year and a half, I had just I found myself doing what I did in the past, but not illegally. I just worked 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. At the time, I was driving Uber. Sammy Smoot actually put me on a way. He said, "Why don't you do Uber, around? Get out of the other thing you're doing." You know what I mean? So you can just like be on your own schedule. So I did that year and a half to try to get my mind off of it. About you can't escape your destiny. So I'm driving Uber one day. I'm making good money as far as, just getting out of prison, and my Uber app won't work. So I'm like, what? Why isn't this working? You can call support. They can't figure it out. It should be working. I got to do something for money. What am I going to do now? You know what I mean? It's like middle of COVID too. So I'm like, let me try DoorDash. So I get right on DoorDash, and now I'm DoorDashing, which is very aggravating. I'll say, like compared to Uber.
For sure.
I'm DoorDashing, and I'm like, 2, 3 weeks is getting aggravating. All of a sudden, I get an order one day. Says to Allison. So I go to Panera Bread, pick up the food. I come to get a delivery to this office building. I go in the front office. There's a big meeting going on. Everyone got COVID masks on. And I recognize Allie. I'm like, is that Allie? But she looked busy, so I just gave her the food left. And I messaged her, "Hey, Allie, what's up? Good to see you. That was me delivering your food." She messaged me back. She's like, "Oh my God, I didn't recognize you. Come back in here when you get a chance. I'm working on some stuff on gang stuff." So I'm like, all right. Came back in, and after 5 minutes of talking to her, she's like, "Would you like a full time salary job here?" I'm like, "Yes, door dashing right now."
I love that.
So she's like, "All right, we're waiting on this grant. It probably won't be for like 6 months, but I'm definitely keep you in the loop." So I'm like, "All right." Keep true to her word. Almost 6 months to the day, we had a block party Beach Street Courts. Started my job in my turn.
Nice. And like, I love what you said, like, you can't escape destiny because, like,
All right.
what are the chances the Uber app would start working? And then you're trying to figure out like another means of income and support's not able to help you. You're just like, okay, screw Uber. Now I'm going to DoorDash. And then it brings you here. And then you meet Allie. Like, I love that you can't escape your destiny because it's so true,
Yeah.
but also where you're at and the fact that, even when your son passed away, which I'm so sorry for your loss, like, as a mother, that's something I would never wish on anybody. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that. And, but when that happened, you didn't go back to like hustling. You didn't go back to the old life. Like, yeah, you worked and you were doing kind of like old behaviors, but in a positive way. And you kept showing up, So when you do the right thing and you continue to have that process, like your destiny is going to align with you. If we go back to old behaviors and we're like crazy and doing all this stuff, our destiny's still going to be there, but it's going to be almost like a different road to reach it, so tell me a little bit about my turn. Like, how is that process starting here? And, you guys are doing such amazing things for the community. And, I see it on social media. It's like such a blessing with how you're incorporating like community together. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the process and some things that you guys do?
So we pretty much help young people figure out what they want to do with their life. Feel like that'll be the overall statement, but there's so many different things we do. So we have the youth center. This is where I started. Allie had the idea. She created it. You know what I mean? And then me and her, and as well as other people who work here, helped build it up. This has been open since mid December 2021, and I want to say for probably the first 6 months, this is like pretty much what I did. Helped build this place up. As I learned, my turn has tons of other stuff they do, which I had no idea about. You got high set right over there, a high set classroom. Anyone at any age can get their high set GED for free. So, which is good. So, say we're working with some kids and school ain't for them or ain't working out, we have high set there. We actually have high set programs in 3 different schools in the city as well.
It's amazing.
But to start, we pretty much just built this place up. I started posting on social media like crazy. New youth center, everything we had. We had PlayStation, the Oculus, virtual reality. We used to have more like foosball. We replaced it with ping pong. They like it better. We had an art room back there when we started. Snacks all in there, kitchen, workout area in there, and then also a recording studio.
Oh, wow.
So once people started hearing about the recording studio, they all started coming. Um, every kid that rapped in the city, pretty much. You know what I mean? So there would be 20, 30 teenagers, like 14 and 17, 18 here at night. And when we first opened, we were open from 2 to 10, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So like every other program should sound like 5 or 6, you know what I mean? So we
Absolutely.
became very popular very fast. We were open the latest. We had a studio. We had food. We were ordering people from the community. Once they started seeing my posts, I have a good friend I went to high school with, Kevin Andre. He owns some Dunkin' Donuts. He started donating 4 dozen of donuts to us every day for the kids.
It's amazing.
I have a friend who works at Domino's, Mikey Ives. He started giving us pizza super cheap, discounted for the kids. And then everybody, there's so many people I can't name them all. They would see a post, hey, do they need sneakers? A guy would come down with some, retro Jordans, give them out. I had people help us plan events, fundraisers. Keith Goodman helped us do a fundraiser at 603 for the kids to raise money for them. All my friends that I grew up with, they have donated money here, snacks, participated in the fundraising.
It must be really like amazing to see community like on the grand scheme and even inner like all come together for a greater purpose.
Yeah,
You know, because
it's
you're really giving kids and the youth, which, you know, as you know through like your experience and what we've seen, a safe place to come and have a mentor. And I'm sure there's plenty. And I know that when we had talked the last time, because you have mentors that kind of go out and like do outreach to reach the youth and stuff like that, which is huge. And a lot of people that maybe are coming from broken homes or just bad situations. I feel like we're not bad people, right? We get into hard situations, but when we don't have that structure and we don't have that environmental stability, it can be so easy to get influenced because everybody just wants to feel like they belong.
right.
And so you find yourself in a situation that can be really dangerous and detrimental because you just want to feel like you belong.
Yeah, that's a big issue. A lot of the kids or teenagers I work with that are going the wrong way. I have like one saying I use, like stuff keeps going wrong when they're going the wrong way. I'm telling them that's because you're going the wrong way in life. If you know when you're in your lane, how you know, they're like, oh, no, there's no traffic. You know what I mean? Stuff's still gonna happen, but when you're going the wrong way in life, it's a traffic jam. You know what I mean? Everything going wrong. A lot of things going wrong. So some of our boys, mostly that get in trouble, anything that has to do with firearms, I try to come up with an idea. How can I teach this kid how to not play with guns, or it's not cool to shoot someone, or get into the street life? So this place is pretty much geared for disadvantaged youth who are at risk, meaning at risk to be a victim of violence or to commit an act of violence. So I'm not 25 now, you know what I mean? I'm still, for someone who's 43, I think I'm pretty onto the things they're into. But so I'm like, how can I change how they think? So like I had an idea one day. Some kids got in trouble. They're like flashing a gun on social media. I'm like, y'all, if you want to come back here, you got to do community service. Like, all right, we'll do it. Um, so I'm like, all right, we're going for a ride. They're like, where? We'll see when we get there. So they're like, we're not going to a jail, right? I'm like, no, we're going to a jail. So they don't know where we're going. I drive to the cemetery right up there on the edge of the west side, and we all get out the car and walk up to my son's grave. So on my son's tombstone is a picture of him with like some Beats by Dre on his head, like picture of a 17-year-old kid, And some of them know that I lost a son. They may not know the story. They have no idea until we go there and they see a kid that looks like them or their friend, and then I tell them the story. But before we even get in the car, I'm like, I want you to think of one person you would never ever want to hurt. And then after I tell them the story, I go, now remember the person I told you to think of you would never want to hurt? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, because if this happens to you and you do something dumb like he did, whoever you thought of is going to be coming here for the rest of their lives on holidays, on your birthday, missing you.
How did they react to
They're
that?
like trying not to cry. You could see they look like
I
they
get
feel
that.
like embarrassed, like they even did what they did. You know what I mean? So,
You also have to understand like that's so impactful and what you're doing here, you and Allie, and having like the outreach, you know, the the people that have gone through it and now outreach, like you're seeing these people, like you're seeing them. Like I
right,
said to you, people just want to be seen and heard. So you're guiding them, but you're not going at them in a way that's like above them or being, you know, really like degrading or an authority figure in the sense of like a triggering way to them. You're seeing them. So I'm sure that experience of you bringing them there was not only so impactful, but they look up to you.
yeah.
So to see that, like, that had to been life-changing for some of those kids.
Every teenager I brought there, I would say some of them have gone straight, some of them still got in trouble here and there, but one thing about all of them, the relationship that we had went from, like, I was just this cool dude who worked here to, like, boom, like, I was their uncle, they were my nephew, every time they see me, they say, "What up?" They call me, asking for jobs, like, they're very thankful, they're very appreciative, like, I feel like they're like my nephews, you know?
Mhm.
And I honestly feel it's from that and the work that we do here.
For sure. Absolutely. And when you're giving people, like, an opportunity, like I said, because think about the way that the system and, like, Department of Corrections and all those systems are lined up, it's almost like a revolving door. And then instead of having like, okay, we believe in you, we see you, we want you to succeed, it's more or less like you're a bad person, you're doing this, we're going to incarcerate you, we're going to do this to you. Like, it's imagine going through something and it could be like a trauma response of how you were raised, and then someone's just sitting there and constantly telling you like you're a bad person, you're a bad person, you're a bad person, you're a mistake, like all these things that you're hearing. That's not who you are. So when you come to a place that you can see somebody and you believe in someone, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge to believe in somebody because you start believing that. And I always say it, I'm like, with being a person in recovery, if I would have gotten off the streets and you would have stuck me in an isolated room and been like, hey, you've made some really bad choices and we're going to sit you in here and we really hope that you get sober and we just want you to think about what you've done because you're not a good person, like just go in there and you have about 5 years and we just want you to sit in that room. Do you think anyone would have a recovery? No one would be sober, no one would have that success story to tell, because what changed that is having the resources like case management or helping, get set up with housing, or having people like meetings. You go to meetings and you connect with fellowship, or just meeting people that are like minded that have been like, hey, I've been there too. You're not alone. Like, you're not crazy. Like, I did the same thing and I'm here to guide you. So that's what you're giving to, the youth and the community, is saying, hey, man, I see you. I honor you. I value you and you're worth something. And I'm going to just guide you,
Right,
but just be open, just have that willingness to listen. Don't be so hard-headed. Just know I'm trying to guide you in that way,
right. Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. And I see all the posts, like I said, I know that recently you brought one of the kids to, was it a soccer game?
Yeah, New England Revolution game, yeah,
Yeah,
Saturday night.
that's amazing.
Yeah, we had a fundraiser, someone actually won those tickets, and they only needed 4, there were 6, so they donated 2 back. So
Oh,
they're like, "Do you wanna take a kid there?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I didn't know it was gonna be all that, I thought it was just tickets, and then once they sent me the email, I seen everything that was gonna happen, I'm like, "This kid's gonna love this." He, like, loves soccer.
did he have the time of his life?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen happy kids because I work here, you know what I mean?
Right.
Seen very depressed, and at the other end, very happy, and I've never seen a kid that happy in my life. Must have said thank you like 100 times. He's like loves soccer. He's 12 years old. He's into soccer, so he's like screaming, standing up, yelling while they're playing. And then we're down like for the soccer game. It's different than like a Patriots game. So like where the Patriots players will be on the bench, that's actually where you're sitting on for those passes.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so we're down there. All like the younger kids that are like in the stands in the first row, they don't know who we are. They think we're like celebrities, so they're all like reaching down to give him a high five. Yeah,
Oh, he'll never forget that.
right. He
That was
loved it.
probably like the best day of his life.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's gonna be talking about that forever, like forever and ever.
yeah.
So,
That's why today. So he got a jersey. I got a jersey. He was like, "You gotta wear your jersey on Monday." So
oh, I love that. That's so good. Yeah, I saw the pictures. It looked like a great time, and all the pictures he was like smiling cheek to cheek. So yeah, that's gonna be a memory that he
yeah.
talks about forever. And when these kids come in, which I'm sure, I mean, the transformation must be incredible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Some of them come in honestly. Like talked a lot about the boys. Talking about some of the females. They'll come in with cuts on their arms. You know what I mean? So some people will say, "Oh, it's because they just want attention." I did a training. It was like the best training I ever did with this job one summer. And this guy that came in, he said, "I hate when people say when the girls have cut marks on their arms, they need attention." Let me ask you all a question here. Do you think any of these kids get the right amount of attention at home? Everyone's okay. So I had multiple actually girls that used to cut their arms. After working with them coming here and stuff, I noticed slowly they didn't just stop overnight, but their lives would fade. They would go away, and then they stopped doing it completely. The ones that I worked with specifically, 100%, they don't do it. And I don't know if it's just because someone listened to them, talked to them. I had one of my longtime participants losing her mind. All this crazy stuff going on, a lot of personal stuff. So I won't say what she was going through, but so I have nothing to say at this point. Like I don't know what to say. We're driving. I got this little Mercedes. So I go, "You still want to learn how to drive?" So she just comes stopped and she was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I call your mom." Like I know her mom. I know her stepmother personally. Call and ask him if you can learn how to drive. She did. They're like, "Yeah, that's fine." Let her drive a little bit. Then it completely got her out of her head, just at least for the moment. You know what I mean? And then started teaching her how to drive. Came up with an idea here one day. I'm like, you want to know what? Like, you got to sacrifice your heart sometimes. So I posted up. Anybody in my program this summer, free driving lessons in my Mercedes. Everyone's like, you're crazy. You're crazy. How have you ever driven with a kid? I'm like, bro, I was in prison for 12 years. Can't be that crazy. But it is kind of crazy. But yeah,
Some of the best ideas are crazy though,
uh,
and I help people.
summers, 15, 20 kids taught them how to drive. They don't get their license, but they learn how to drive, and they can use the hours for their when they do driver's ed for their experience hours. Some lady even seen it. She has a radio station in Nashville. She's seen it on Facebook. Called us on to go on the radio. Me and Allie went on. Then we brought a participant back on. She wanted to talk to a participant. We do all types of stuff like that. Get them on the radio. You know what I mean? So they can tell people their own experience. Like I told you before, you want to talk to one of our participants, see what they have to say for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would love to. It'd be an honor, because they're experiencing it and you're obviously like running it and giving them opportunity. But I know that when you're going through it, they'll be able to kind of give me insight on like a different way. And like I said, it's really beautiful. You're bringing hope back into community. And I always say like if we help one person a day, even with this podcast that I started, like I didn't go into it for money. I didn't go into it for ego. I didn't go into it for clout. I didn't go into it to be like, oh, look what Chris is doing. I went into it to really help people. And just, I always say, even this, which I know this is going to help so many people. And even speaking to you, like I learned something from you. You know what I mean? It's very humbling. And I learned something from every single person I interview. If I reach one person, I did my job.
Right. Yeah, I feel the same way.
I did my job. It doesn't have to be masses and masses and masses. Like one person could hear this and be like, I needed to hear that. And you never know who it's going to affect. You could save a life.
Right.
You can change somebody's way of thinking or at least just plant that seed, even if their thinking isn't completely changed. Like they'll think back and be like, oh, I heard that. I heard that. Or maybe they'll come down here and check it out, if they're going through that and have that safety net of community. And I think a huge thing too, which I love what you're doing as well, is I think we live in such a society that's like independency, independency, independency. Like it's good to be independent. It is, but that can also lead to isolation, which can lead to depression, anxiety, all those things. So with what you're doing at My Turn, when you bring community together, that heals. Community is the opposite of addiction. Community is the opposite of brokenness. Like it's the opposite of so many different things. So when people have, and I'm sure they make friends here, and then they're surrounded by other kids that are inspired to change and are changing, and you are who you surround yourself with. You are a product of your environment. So even if their home life, like that's one thing I always teach my daughter when she goes to school is to be kind to other kids because I tell her, I said, Isabella, I said, we don't bully. You have to be kind because some kids don't go home to love, So you have to remember that you have a household you come to that's loving, but some kids don't have that. Some kids, they go to school, that's their only meal. So the fact that you have all those donations with like pizzas and stuff, like it's really beautiful because people need that. And coming here, that might be the only meal they have.
Right. That's what we noticed right off the bat. Like to get kids in here, the first thing you gotta have snacks. You gotta have food. You know what I mean? First thing you ever want to get any program. All the people I network with in their own, you gotta have food. You
Absolutely.
gotta feed them. Like you said, you don't know what they're going home to. They might be well fed. They might not be well fed. But even if they are, they're still gonna get hungry when they're here. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
The best way to keep a kid in a safe environment is to feed them.
Yeah. Food's like I feel like food's like the love anyway. Food is like the way to the heart anyway, so, but that's amazing that you're giving like, it's a safety net in every way, and I wanted to ask you too, when it comes to so when you first started at My Turn and obviously you're having these ideas of, like, free driving lessons and all these things that you are doing in the community, do you feel that it's really intuitive? Do you feel that maybe, like, the way that you think about helping the youth is almost like what you needed, like mentorship? Is it kinda just, like, go with the flow, like your intuition on how to help them? Like, how does that look for you when you come up with ideas?
Well, yeah, so I have my schedule that I have, so within my schedule, I don't wanna say maybe I hear a kid saying something or the idea sometimes they just come to me, like, so I go to s in the morning, we have a classrooms, My Turn classrooms, we teach, like, financial literacy and other things like that. Inner city kids will have to probably learn faster than somebody who comes from a better background, you know what I mean? So, I actually go in there to mentor in Central from 9:30 to 12:30 every day, and then I go to West till 2:30. So, I notice in West too, like, we have Allie has snacks for the kids and stuff too, but not all the time, when they get their funding or whatever, they get it. So I noticed I'm like, these kids think I haven't had snacks in like a week, a month. So I start doing, maybe let me start posting. I notice when I post, I get a donation, I get more people inspired to donate. That's why I even post the donations. So like now when I go to West or Central, these kids are like waiting, coming to the class, Carl here yet? You know what I mean? So but that like, the food is all where it starts. Now, the kid comes, "Hey, how are you doing? What's going on with you?" You build a relationship. Now when they're stressed out or going through something, they talk to you or anything, "Hey, can you give me a job? You know where I can get a job?" Everything you can think of, it all starts with that.
Well, they feel safe,
Yeah,
and this could be, like, the first place that they felt safe in a long time.
yeah, and then so that's what I kinda do now. So the youth center's from 3 to 5. When school's in, during the summer, we're open 9 to 5.
Okay,
So last day of school is Tuesday. It's about to be just here, but
okay.
now all the high school students know, you know, you want to come down, grab a snack, you need help, you need learn how to drive. We might have field trip or something. Come down.
That's awesome. And some kids just come and, like, hang out here.
A lot of when I first started this job, I was thinking kids are going to be here, there, there. Some of them literally like vibe with different staff members more than others, or all of them. We've had kids at groups that just come and sit here and chill with us and talk. You know what I mean? Tell us about what's going on in their life. They don't play video games. They don't go in the music room. They literally just chill, play Uno.
I love that. They're being kids. Yeah, they're getting that. They don't have to be so grown up. They can enjoy the age that they are and learn how to be present in the moment and just really connect. Because I feel like even like obviously video games, like you can relax and stuff, but you get so used to kind of trying to like distract your mind. But connection is huge. So having that space to be able to do that, like that must mean everything to them.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like everything. How can we like make them feel seen, heard, cared about, like genuinely, not just like as like a promotional thing. So there's this little calendar. Every one of their birthdays that come here, we put their birthdays on there, and we recognize their birthdays. I put a couple quotes up for the month so that they'll see. But so we have 3 birthdays this month. The holidays, days were closed, everything, just so they know. But
So do you feel like a lot of like new kids come here more or less from like other kids that have been through it and it's kind of like word of mouth? Do you think it's like a mixture of promotion on social media as well? Or do you think like a huge part of, finding that safety net here has to do with the outreach that you have involved?
I think it's a combination of everything. But the kids probably telling their friends that's the best way.
Yeah,
Come down
absolutely.
here. They have snacks, they have video games, or not just that, older teenagers. You can learn how to drive, you know what I mean? You get a ride home. That the outreach now. I mean outreach now is I go into the high schools during the day and even if we don't get them to come down here, try to get them stop getting in trouble in school. Why are you getting so one kid, I'll give you an example. He's getting in trouble in school. The school gave me a list of kids to talk to. He's already on my list of kids I already know he's going through stuff. So I told them, I'm like, his father just died. Like this isn't gonna stop overnight. I think that obviously he was getting in trouble before that, but his father wasn't really in his life. Now his father just died. You know what I mean? So this kid's sitting in the car with me one day. I had to bring someone to probation because we do young adult court stuff too. This kid's 15 and he's like, "Carl, I'm gonna be honest with you, my dad just died." He's like, "I'm afraid, like I can't believe my dad just died. I'm like, I don't even know what to do." Like, so I'm flashing back, same age I was, and I can feel like exactly what he's saying. But there's nothing I can do as far as like, make his father come back or something. But what I can do is what would what would have helped me when I went through that. So one night randomly, I went to the GO and I seen like 8 of our kids there, like 9:30. They're like junior high and high school. I'm like, "You guys are allowed in here this late?" They're like, "Yeah, it's 25-cent wing night." So I'm like, "Oh, all right." So when he was telling me that thing, I'm like, "You wanna go? We're gonna go to GO Wednesday. I'm gonna take you to GO. What's up? Wings on me. Just gotta make sure your mom knows." So brought him out to the GO, uh, and just had some wings and talked to him. You know what I mean? Now we have a great relationship. Every time I see him, "What's up? Yo, what's up? You got a snack?" Comes down here, randomly shows up here. I see him in the school. I see him in the street. You know what I mean? Still gets into his little fights and his little trouble, but he has people now. You know what I mean? But before, what did you have?
Right. And he felt alone.
Right.
And now he knows that, and even just bringing him to a restaurant and just having, a talk, regardless of what that looked like, and just shooting the shit, having wings, like,
Yeah.
that's great. And it gives him the opportunity to connect, like I said. It's really amazing what you're doing here. And I love that. I feel like everything we go through happens for a reason, like even when it's really difficult. And I don't know why bad things happen to good people. I think that there's certain things that, especially when it comes to like losing people, I feel like sometimes we don't always heal from things. I think we learn how to like live with them. But I also feel that every experience that we have, even like throughout your incarceration and what you went through, like it's interesting and beautiful how it brought you to this exact place. So now you're literally working with kids from your experience, and you can redirect them in like a positive way.
Right.
And even if they still make choices, because at the end of the day they're kids, right? And like, we, even as adults, I'm not perfect, I still make mistakes. Like, life is a constant learning process every single day. You never know what's gonna, and life will I always say, like, life will always be life. You never know what, you can wake up and have a whole day plan, and then before you know it, like, something's put in your way and now you're having to take a left, and you were planning on going right. And then it's like, okay, well, how do I deal with those moments? What coping skills can I use to kind of maneuver and keep myself calm for how I've worked? But it's everything happens for a reason. And it's amazing that you're doing this. I love that. I think that, you know, there's a lot of hard things that happen in the world. I think, it's so easy to get caught up in the negative, and this is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening. It can be like so
Right.
overwhelming, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I'm gonna just sit in my house and isolate, and no one's gonna see me again. But there's so much good that happens out there too. And I think when you can like focus on that, like you said, it's you can have all these hard things going on, but what good things do you have going on in your life? Like, what are a few good things that you can change, even if it's small? You had a coffee today. Okay, great. You got a nice
Right.
cup of
That
coffee.
was great.
Cool.
That was the highlight of.
Yeah. I know. I love coffee. I gave it up for 6 months, but I need my coffee. I'm like, oh, I love it. So, yeah. And I guess, I always just kind of like to end my podcast. If there's like one thing that you can say, maybe for somebody that's like going through a hard time right now, like one word of advice that you have, like, what would you leave with that person?
I would say from my whole life experience, like I just said, all my childhood trauma, going to prison, losing loved ones, going through all of that was rough and I suffered, but it all was meant for good. So, like I said, I lost a son. A lot of people are like, "Yeah, you still lost your son. Like, you got a cool job." No, I lost a son, but I gained 40 more. You know what I mean? So, all my childhood trauma, this has been the greatest. The kids obviously are getting help, but this is nothing has healed me more than this job in my entire life. My childhood trauma, I pulled up, I dropped the kid off one day when I first started. I dropped this kid off, and one of the closest kids I ever had here. He's actually, unfortunately, in the state hospital in Concord due to mental health issues. But I dropped this kid off. I turned around to leave. I had to cut through a parking lot, and I was facing straight at the funeral home my father was in when he died when I was a kid. And it hit me. Boom. All of this happened for good. Everything that I went through.
It's huge.
So I can just say if you're going through stuff, don't judge it. don't judge what's going on as bad because it can still, not saying what I went through was good, but it can still be used for great, for good, for your good, for other people's good. And I feel like I'm a man of God. God is faithful. God will heal you and everyone around you.
Amen. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you I'm grateful that God saved you, and I'm grateful that you are able to have this experience because you're like making a difference. And I know that this journey wasn't easy for you. And I want to thank you for your vulnerability and, for coming on my platform and just being so like raw and open. I see you and I validate you, and you are an incredible person. And what you're doing is so inspiring. And if there's anything that I can do to support what you guys are doing, I'm here for you. And I can't wait to see what you continue to grow into because I know it's going to be amazing. And what you and Ali are doing, like you're saving lives. You're making a difference, and that's really what it comes down to. Like I said, even if it's one person a day, it's a blessing. So everything you went through, the pain and everything, it's for your purpose now. And I'm glad that you started door dashing so you could be
Yeah,
here.
me too. Yeah,
So yeah, I appreciate you. And again, my turn is located Granite Street, right?
340 Granite Street.
340 Granite Street. Summer is coming, so it's going to be open 9 to 5. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so come down, check it out. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time. It's been an honor speaking with you, and thank you for everybody that supports my platform. Like it's been such a beautiful opportunity. We're going on 2 years, which is crazy. But yeah, Faith Over Fear. We air on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Spreaker. And if you or somebody wants to speak, I always say if we all have a testimony, we all have a story that we can share to help one person. So God bless you. We will see you soon.